we're going to get into it and talk about this turning of the year and strangely Beetlejuice, the star and the movies and even Christmas trees kind of all tie into this. So it's like actually a great time to talk about this, really. We just had the solstice, like giving the torch from the light to the dark, right? And then now the sun is returning in the northern hemisphere as we start to tilt back towards the sun and having longer days and changing of seasons. So they always do duality. It's always black and white. To me, that straight up, it's always like life and death, right? The duality of anything, man and woman here. And also the masculine, feminine, chess is all about symbolism.
Well, you've got the three women too, and it's the grandmother, the mother, and the daughter. So you've got the dark triple goddess.
Yeah. I mean, it's endless. Like it was very fun to watch, even the second one, because like I understood like kind of all the symbolism there. And
yeah,
it's everywhere. Yeah, the triple goddess, all three generations. Two of them were in the first one. And both times there's like this, it's weird because at the beginning of the movie, like they of the second one, dad is gone. He got killed by a shark after a plane crash. And sorry, we're not trying to disclose all like the ruin any movies, but we are taking some Beetlejuice. And so right away it was all about like kind of like the drama of just like the triple goddesses being in charge, right? Trying to fix something. And then at the end we have like the young one getting married, but after, of course, going into like this realm of the underworld. So we have like a little bit of mythology with like Persephone and Hades, but that is also Pluto and Venus, as we've talked on Puppy's Field Project before. And so, I mean, it's just endless. It's great. I recommend it. Like a lot of times when there's a second movie, especially when it comes out so late, it's not, people have a lot of expectations. And I thought they did a great job.
So after seeing the movie, now I saw a lot of comments about the second Beetlejuice, about they thought having what's her name, Monica Bellucci in there as Beetlejuice's wife, like they didn't understand why they just decided to throw a wife of Beetlejuice in the movie. But if you watch the first movie, when during the ceremony between Lydia and Beetlejuice, he pulls a finger, his ex-wife's finger out of his pocket. He takes the ring off. That's his ex-wife. So he had the finger. She was chopped into pieces. So like it makes sense putting her into the movie because it's from the first fucking movie.
Right, exactly. And that's what makes the difference. Like they're like, what it's Tim Burton. Plus he doesn't make crap. He doesn't make crap. And so he already has that story of Beetlejuice. Like, and he's like, he knows all this occult knowledge. And so even the first movie, he's just tying in and making a movie out of like the whole story, and whether he knew he was going to make a second one or not. Like, yes, attention to detail, man. Attention to detail.
And he probably added stuff to the second movie that he wanted to add to the first one, but it would have made it too long. So he's probably sitting on like he was probably sitting on like 25 years of like ideas.
Exactly. And this marriage concept too, right? Again, we have like sort of this alchemical marriage, the dualities, And even in the second one, Lydia, she's trying to get like, she wants to get married, but like here, it wasn't even like a pure masculine, and who exposes it, but like Beetlejuice. And so Beetlejuice becomes not quite like the enemy, but like somebody they don't want to rely on. It's like, summoning a demon to help eat another demon. And sometimes you have to do that. And then a lot of times then there's always a price to pay because it's energy and stuff too. And so both times there's like this theme of that, like making a deal with the devil, but also like sort of like the journey through the afterlife. But that's also zodiac. This time of year, a lot of this constellations and the planets and like the sun really is in the underworld. And so then our soul and our chakra system starts to build again with the turning of the wheel. And so it taps on a lot of the whole soul's journey every time. And with any good story, it's the hero's journey, right? So who's the hero here and who's the anti-hero? And that
should I say spoiler alert here? Because I think there's going to be spoiler alert.
I think it's fine.
Spoiler alert. Yeah. So anyway,
this is a review.
Yeah, this the soul's journey explains why the couple Barbara and what's his name aren't in this movie. There's some stuff that's stated like throughout the movie, and specifically at the end that it explains it without saying it explicitly. I think that like they did their good deed, and that's how they got out of the 125 years on Earth.
That's right. Yeah, this is like the preparation of your soul for death, in the world, in between worlds, especially if you believe in like sort of reincarnation. And man, like there's definitely a lot of this Jew and beetle symbolism and all of it, and the stars and the zodiac and all the mythological stories about it. But then there's like this like the Jewish situation where this particular movie might be there's a lot of slam towards the Jews using the term like Beetlejuice, and you'll see like as we continue to talk about this. But then like this movie was fun and stuff, but there's like a similar theme. Can you go to the next slide? I'm sorry, I kind of was talking to better thing. Apologize. I know there's a way that I could do that too, but we'll get into that next time. So like I said, the afterlife, the propaganda with Fanta soda during World War II, like there's so much of it. Like Hitler is in it, but then a lot of the like advertisements were slamming Jews with the soda advertisements. That's usually like when the mindset to like it's okay that these are minorities, these are below us, like it starts to like talk to the subconscious. And so I saw that even during World War II Germany, where at first it was like and like I said, this was like the haunted apple. Can you go to the next slide? It'll talk more about what I'm talking about. Okay, so even here, haunted apple, like we have like a haunted house behind it, like, and it's fine, like Beetlejuice, like it's dark, it's crazy. Can you go to another slide, next slide too? And then this is what I'm talking about. This was like kind of the first Fanta advertisements where here we have like a nice, like, pretty house lady. She's gonna serve Fanta and have like.
So I do have to say that I would think that Tim Burton would know all the history between Fanta and Meiers because he is definitely into Art Deco and like Bauhaus in that area. Like just from his the style of his artwork, you can tell he's into like the old German stuff.
Oh,
Like the
totally.
old German art. So I
Yeah,
think he would
wherever you get,
definitely
like
know about this connection.
yeah, wherever you get, like, your influence, especially as an artist, that's a good way to look at it. And so this is a good, like, approach because we're looking at, like, Tim Burton's, like, inspiration a little bit more here, right? But there's some darkness to it, but he's also trying to expose the darkness through his art, which is great. Looking at it not like people aren't trying to trick you. It's just like that's if you make art, every little detail should matter, and if there's a theme, right? And he did such a good job. But already, look at this Fanta bottle on the right where it's striped. They had like that duality, sort of like with Fanta associated with that. Either black and white, but also the green and white, because some of it they use syrup and it would like be coming down the side of like more of a creamier soda. Very, very interesting. But like the early ones were like just kind of more of like an introduction to just the soda itself. I mean, we have Hitler here. And then if you go to the next slide, you'll see that there's just like more similarities. So on the right and on the left, these are older like Coca-Cola or Fanta ads where they have the fist holding up the soda. And then here again in 2024, we have the advertisement for the Beetlejuice Fanta and the same hand, the exact same position, and here, is that part of his, oh no. So it's all tied in. So but what's weird is Fanta is still the Nazi company and they're still doing the same propaganda, right? Tim Burton is just like recognizing this and putting it all together. But like, like it's very important that they do the same things because then it becomes a symbol, and that's also sort of a military thing, right? So interesting. And then go to the next slide. I'm just showing like some of like what's going on here with these soda companies. The soda companies to me are always, tied in with or anything like that, with propaganda, with war and with war efforts or anything. They can steer a message just with like people loving like their soda or just seeing their ads. So even in the middle, we see like the die 3. There's always something. So here we have like the third rye. You can see the third rye right in that ad. It's like, and I'm not sure the year of that one, but we have Fanta, Coca-Cola, Sprite. They're basically all made by the same. They're all the same company. And Fanta and Coca-Cola for a while, they were also given to the Vietnam vets. Big time soda. So a lot of that, like the war advertisements have soda. Like they're all associated with like this war. It's just and sometimes there's like this rivalry. They think that they're actually at a rival, like Pepsi and Coca-Cola. There's really no difference. And Fanta is obviously, if you see on the bottle on the right, it's a product of Coca-Cola. So if you recycle Fanta's bottles, even if they're made in Mexico, I just drank one. Well, I drank a Fanta, an orange Fanta, while watching the movie. I thought that was kind of fun. And then could you go to the next slide too? Here's where the green and white are. So at the movie, they would make they made like a snow cone globe, and they made it striped with green. And again, it looked just like the Fanta advertisements of Nazi Germany. Fun, right? Did you see those, Shelly, at the movie? This needs to be down a little bit. Hear me?
Okay, I can hear you now.
Could you not hear me at all? Here. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I didn't hear you for a second. So
Okay.
yeah, I can
After
hear
a
it
long
now.
time? Was it just trailing off? Okay.
Yeah, okay. So I didn't I heard the part about the drink at the movie being the same stripes and stuff. So got that part.
Yeah, I just asked if you saw that when you went to the movie.
We didn't really get anything. I think we got like a fucking small soda and huge ass popcorn to share between us, and that was it. So there wasn't like anything special at the theater we went to, I don't think.
Yeah, I think some places were doing this.
Or it was like $20 for something like that. So no.
Oh, I'm sure. Oh, totally. Like,
We just needed our standard snacks, and we were good.
I got free Coke at Cocaine Bear.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, everybody else was like drinking alcohol, and I was like, another Coke, please. Like, but I thought that was great. Like, free Coke all night long. So, I mean, look at even like this. Fanta's been around for a long time, and it's good. But yeah, it's definitely tied in like with this like war effort, and just kind of like, I mean, they get to support war with the soda. I mean, to me, it's pretty much simple as that. And then everybody likes sugar, everybody's addicted to sugar. So it's just wild how it keeps adding up. Would you go to the next slide? And then, so this is something that I noticed when I was like, as soon as I looked at the Beetlejuice Fanta, I'm like, Jews in the attic, of course, obviously, or ghosts in the attic. Okay. Obviously, in the first one, and I'm not assuming someone's Jewish or not, but like those three are well-known Jewish people, right? Jews in the attic, and what happened during the Holocaust?
I mean, they are trying to get rid of the
ghosts
ghosts
in the attic. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
They are trying to get rid of the ghosts in both movies in the houses, so it makes sense.
Right. So they're well, and both times they are ghosts. They're ghosts already, and they haven't like passed to the afterlife yet. But again, there's Jews in the attic representing to me, hiding Jewish people in the attic or in the floorboards or wherever you had to. People are hiding their friends and their neighbors, right? So a couple famous ones. We have Anne Frank. What's the other one here? We have Isa Hauser. And then there's also a story of Stephanie Podgorska, which is interesting. So in 1942, she was an orphaned. Her and her sisters were orphaned. I don't know if her parents got killed, but they were hiding. The story is 13 Jews in their attic for like 4 months. And I think she married one of them. One of them just died. So like the story had resurfaced a couple years ago. And so there's this, I think that's like I mean, there's no denying it. That's like why Beetlejuice and these ghosts were up in the attic, and the ghosts might still be lingering there and like, haunting some house. If they got killed up there, if they died up there, and that's like a message itself. But then we get into a little bit of astrology and like the underworld. So if you go to the next slide, we'll see that in the second movie, the girl, she's alive and she goes into the like kind of in between life, right? She starts going into the underworld with the ghosts from the attic. So he's dead, she's living, and that's to me Persephone and Hades bring her into the underworld, right? And so she has to go get saved by her mom. And again, this is the triple goddess, right? And so she makes a deal with Beetlejuice. The mom makes a deal with Beetlejuice in order to go into the underworld world to rescue Persephone, and so that she can like come back to living life. And what's weird is they like get dropped into a moon, and they're like, look, there's Saturn, right? It's the sand where like the snake is, and that snake is in both movies. They go there twice, right? So in
the sandworm.
Yeah, the sea worm. I could probably, I'll grab a picture of it. So the sea worm, and what do they see? Like, look,
sandworm.
Saturn. I think they're on Io. I think they're on what is Io? It's a moon of Jupiter. So if they were on Io, they would see Saturn like that. It gets quite deep, huh? I mean, did you pick up on that? Like, where did you think like the sand like serpents came from? Give me your thoughts for a while.
I don't think I really picked up on that. But I do on like the whole traveling to the underworld and the connection with the Persephone story, and I mean that's pretty evident, I think, if you know anything about the any of the underworld mythologies, not just with Persephone, but any of the major ancient mythologies. I think they all have like stories like that.
Right. And yeah, I mean, and always too, like every week, Poppy's Field Project, right? We're always like kind of connecting this stuff anyway. So what about Saturnalia? Saturnalia is basically celebrated before Christmas. That's also kind of like when Hanukkah is too. And then it's 12 days of Christmas. New Year's Day is the 8th day of Christmas. And the 12th day of Christmas is January 6th, which is the Three Kings Day. So it's all kind of tied in. And we just like, and we have the winter solstice there. And we have Sagittarius moving into Capricorn. We have Jupiter ruling into Saturn ruling. So to me, that like it's all like, kind of tied in. And it didn't really like connect the IO until I saw, they're like, look, Jupiter with that sandworm.
So, have you heard of the Saturn the Saturn theory, the Saturn being the first sun theory, and then but like Saturn was the first sun, and then it was Saturn and the sun being dual suns, but Saturn was the main sun, and then it died, and then our sun became the main sun. Have you heard about that? I do think
absolutely.
that
there's so many different theories, and this is connecting it. Yeah.
But you got Saturnalia right before Christmas, and Yule is the longest night of the year, and then it's the birth of the sun during Christmas because it's a few days after Yule. So it makes sense that you got Saturnalia, Yule, and then Christmas, because it's like death of Saturn and the birth of the sun.
Well, even the sun doesn't even have so much to do with it. Like Jupiter rules, and then Saturn with like, the sun's there too, but like it's almost like they're the second sun who rules the second sun. It's kind of interesting because Saturn can be considered, Santa Claus and all this.
It's totally possible. It's totally possible that Saturn was the first sun. Saturn is a dead sun that eventually became a planet.
Exactly. And so what if so now, with the Saturn worship, it's always like, and then the Christians have like more of the sun worship, but not really. They're worshiping Jupiter, I think, which is Jesus, Zeus. They're talking about the other planets. So we could have lived on moons around Jupiter and Saturn too at one point when they were more of they could have been more like a big bright sun, and they lost a lot of their plasma. They're then shrunk down to white dwarfs, right? And then they're gaining their power back, and they're gaining all these moons. And if anything, I was obsessed with Io as a kid, and Saturn, maybe there is some memory of either us in the future, the past, or other, maybe not all of us living or in between lives. We go there, like there's something there. There's definitely something there. Like it's a gateway to these other planets. And Io is super active. It's super active with volcanoes. It's one of Jupiter's largest moons, and Jupiter has like 90 plus moons, right? So it's really, really interesting. I think, like, yeah, you're absolutely right. I really think these are over. So the second coming of Saturn, this is a great book. My mom gave me this. It kind of talks about that. And so what could have happened even is that Saturn was more of a burning bright star, and it lost all of its plasma because its sister star maybe ate it. You never know. And then we have this sun that we live by. Saturn and our Jupiter want to be the sun next. And so the second coming of Saturn really talks about them regaining their power. And if any star becomes a white dwarf instead of like a brown dwarf, they still hold some of that energy and they can regenerate. It's easier. So
we know so little about our universe and the reality of what is actually out there in the sky that we can visibly see. And it's like, who are we to say that what happens? It's like we don't know what happens to everything. Like we claim that we can see to the Big Bang, but it's like there is no singularity. There is no beginning and there is no end. It's just all infinite. So there was no Big Bang. I mean, yeah, there was a creation of everything, but it's just everything has always existed and always will. And it's one of those things that is really hard for people to comprehend, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I have such an open mind about any of it, can be connected. And then it kind of really is. If you oh, well, maybe that's how, that's where we've been. There's memories of Saturn. And all the stars live and die. And so even the fact that this movie is called Beetlejuice, we have a star that is Beetlejuice. Do you want to go to the next slide? And then we'll get into that. All right. And so Io is part of, oh, that's echoing. Hold on. That's probably better. Excuse me. Can you hear me? Io is this really, really beautiful, kind of colorful, active moon of Jupiter. And when I saw this picture, it said Astrum. So Astrum, I don't know if anybody has seen it. I guess it's a documentary series. But the kid, or the young woman, the maiden on Beetlejuice 2, her name is Astrid. There's all these different correlations. And so even with Astrum, I was like, okay, is that the name? What does that have to do with Io? But it's the other meaning for it in Latin is celestial luminary. So it means like a star, a bright star. Interesting, right? So maybe that always makes me think okay, if it's that active, you could see it, it's a luminary, maybe it's was itself a big star, maybe it's trying to be another star, but Astrum also could mean Saturn, Jupiter, that they're going around. I don't know. I just thought that was really interesting because the only other places you see Astrum is this kind of this Astro, the name of this girl. And then the documentary series, which explores the solar system, which I need to check it out, but it launched in 2013. I don't know if you watched that at all. So the only other one, of course, is a gaming entertainment online So it launched several major projects in Russia and abroad in 2008. So it's and the whole game of Astrum is the legacy of dragons and time zero. So here we go. It's kind of all tied in.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard of that.
Yeah, it looks like it talks in depth about, you can, I think, even watch some of the videos online. I just found it doing a little extra research today about it. And then too, what's interesting is so Io itself, it's one of the 4 largest moons of Jupiter, and Jupiter is big, and there's a lot of moons. I've even seen the 4 moons going around Jupiter through a telescope once. It was amazing. You could wow, really, really, really powerful. I mean, so what if there definitely could be life there? There's volcanic action, like the core. There could definitely be a reason why this is in so many stories and why it's associated with all of this. So it's just rad.
I don't see why not. There's they found bacterial life on other planets, or I mean they say they have, so it's possible. So
and it was like some of the first images, Galileo, the spacecraft called Galileo, took pictures in 1995, and it just looks like one big round pizza. Gate to Saturn, Pizzagate. I think there's something like I would love to look more and more into this Io. I mean, even as a kid, I was obsessed with Io and Europa, the moons. Some of the bigger moons of Saturn and Jupiter, they just called to me. I mean, I just like all astronomy. And here, like, there's a lot of correlation to what we've researched. And so, like, it's quite interesting. Saturn, the Saturn worship, Pizzagate, Beetlejuice. And we're not saying, again, like, anything's like, I'm not trying to bring doom and gloom. Nothing is like evil or bad or nothing. I'm like, well, what? It's all correlated. We're looking at the symbols. We're connecting a lot of stuff. And
plus, synchronicities just exist.
Right.
Sort of,
it's like representing, telling the stories over and over and over in so many different ways of like either past or future of where we've been, where we're going. And a lot of it is like, the stories from above coming down. And it's quite wild. Anyway, Shelly's gone. She'll be right back. And Astrum itself too, she's like a Astrum is a child of Lydia, who is Lydia is the kid in the first one. Now she's the mom in the second. And her dad, Astrum's dad, is already in the underworld. She goes and visits, like she sees him, right? She visits him when Lydia goes down. So like her mom goes down to bring her back, just like Persephone. And this is even like a Shakespeare play. I have to remember exactly which one it is. The Tempest, where again you see these same stories over and over again, because you are. I mean, and again, it doesn't necessarily
the Tempest
time with just everything out there, but it's also our soul's journey, right? Who hasn't dated or been with like a bad boy that brings you into the underworld, and maybe your family has to come in and like bring you back, like yo. Just making like some jokes there, kind of. I don't know. What did you think of? If you can go to like the next slide, I'll show you like the sand snake a little bit, what we're talking about, and it's just an idea of mine that maybe during this scene that they're going to somewhere like Io, or at least another moon of Saturn or Jupiter, right? So in the background of the sandworm, when they go there, this is Beetlejuice 2, they see Saturn. Now, I can't tell if they also can see if this is Jupiter, but if they're right next to Jupiter, they wouldn't be able to like see Saturn and the rings, right? So that's why I thought Io. And so both her and her mom have to like go there in order to get back into the land of the living. It's kind of like this in between world, like, you know, like this gate between, if Saturn has always been associated with Satan, right? The ruler of like the underworld. Like right now, as Capricorn rules Saturn. No, I think there's a lot there.
I don't know. I think I do understand the association with Saturn and Satan. I see it too, but I think people associate it too much, like as far as like a 100% matchup, because it's not all bad. You know, not everything is all bad. I don't think there's anything that's like pure evil or pure good. It's just, you know, just things are. And I think people attribute too much evil with the Saturn stuff. That's just
totally. That's my whole point too. When like it's like when there's associations, I'm like, it's just like, you know, a little bit more associated with Saturn, and that's okay. Instead of like, yeah, it being like this negative thing. I'm just trying to bring light on all like the correlation, because Saturn like kind of rules time, right? And then Pluto's kind of like, go ahead.
If you like go back to like the theory about, you know, Saturn being the first sun and being basically a dead sun that turned into a planet or whatever, it kind of I mean, I guess you could see that as a like being the fallen star, but you know, that was never all evil at what, you know, Satan was an angel too, you know, light being. So it's like, you know, I think people just attribute too much evil into certain concepts.
Absolutely. And like trigger words to where, well, so I'm trying to like decode all these stories, and like all movies, all of Hollywood use the
for sure.
And so it's just being like retold. And again, it's like our soul's journey, but the planets are our soul's journey, and it's like trying to give us clues of how to get out of here, of this like moving clock a little bit too, and telling the stories of the past where like we pick up on certain words like or something like that, or Luigi, and then I start to see other stories, which a lot of times are about these planets moving around, like Saturn, like the second coming of Saturn, the second coming of the Messiah, and then we have like asteroids, the asteroid goddesses as well, is associated with all of these. Juno being, you know, some of these moons of Jupiter and Saturn have been kind of shifted around. Some of the stories, Saturn eats some of Jupiter's kids, and it's the Olympians and the Titans, and I think it has a lot to do with Saturn and Jupiter kind of trying to be the new to be the new star, and like sort of like that battle, and it's quite interesting. Because it makes more sense that all these Star Wars would be up there instead of just being these outrageous people down here on Earth. But it affects us because if we leave Earth, our souls leave Earth, we might need to actually have some where to go, even if it's not molecular like Earth is, you know. All right, pretty understand. Nice.
Next slide.
Yeah. So here's just again, here's Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice, if you know Beetlejuice in the Sky, is a big bright red giant. It's in the stage where it's swelled up to a red giant, so it could supernova at any time. And it's part of Orion's constellation. We've been talking about it with the Winter Triangle, and it being part of Orion, and the two Canis Minor, right? So it's kind of really interesting.
Is Beetlejuice the head or is it one of the shoulders?
It's
I don't remember what part it is.
Shoulders. It's let's see.
Is it the right shoulder or the left shoulder? Is it the brighter one? Is it the brighter shoulder?
You're right. Am I right?
Because
so
when you're looking up,
it's on the left.
Is it the left shoulder? It's the left shoulder.
Yeah, it's the left.
Okay.
And you can see it's pretty bright and red.
You remember out in Pueblo when I was telling you about the stationary star kind of pick up and move across the sky sometimes?
Yeah.
I told you I saw one out in Pueblo. Well, Beetlejuice is one of the stars I've seen do that.
Absolutely, because here it's a being and it's super bright and it's spewing out all its plasma, and so you can kind of see like that these are kind of like moving like vortexes more than just like a circle.
They're flipping. There's some kind of living being. Maybe not in our biological sense of the living the concept of life, but they're alive.
Of course, yeah, because we all have like an inner sun ourselves, right? And so these stars too, as they live and die, like maybe we've lived by them. Maybe we can never go back. They recycle each other. Maybe Beetlejuice ate one of its sister stars. That one's dormant, and I think they can move them around. It's endless. So it tells the story of us, like even of our past. Maybe we just left Beetlejuice because we knew it was going to become this, And our sun, if you know astronomy, the size and elemental, makeup of our current sun that we spin around gives us our life force as far as heat, light, I guess. It's debatable. That's gonna die soon too, and we can learn a lot from Beetlejuice because Beetlejuice has already turned into that red giant. Ours is gonna swell up to a red giant, and to our theories, to a lot of people's theories, it would swell up so big that being like a bigger size as it starts to spew out its plasma. It's dying. It's been there forever. And then it starts to break down the elements, the chemical compounds, and just spew out. And it's sad and beautiful. But then if we go back to the stars, this is the stuff we go back to. Nothing is forever. Eternity is a long time though, and the stars live and die, and they come back again. It's wild.
Well, it's the same thing with everything. Energy, it can neither be created nor destroyed. It just changes its formation. Everything cycles. It's hard to grasp the concept of infinity and eternity and just everything being on loop. And it's like what is it? The universe is the universe is a toroidal field.
Well, so if you think about
toroidal field is the center. I can't.
Yeah. All that stuff. Toroidal field. Yeah. So it starts in the heart center, right where the fire is. Actually, we're at the earth plane, but even as
it's like everything
around you.
Cycling.
That's look at a volcano. Even our earth, everything dies and it seeps down into earth and it gets hot and it transforms. I mean, it becomes maybe becomes some crystals, or maybe it becomes a lava and comes back up out of these volcanoes and starts anew. So already you can kind of see that same concept with something like that.
there's no such thing as absolute nothingness.
Right. And so, right. There's many riddles about that too. Because like nothing is something, and like, yeah.
Yeah. Like, I mean, like, if you believe in nothing and that's what you manifest as nothing, then that your concept that nothing does exist. But in reality, nothing doesn't exist.
Right.
Because we exist, everything around us exists. What's in our mind exists. So nothing doesn't
It can
exist.
never really be nothing.
Except as a concept in somebody's mind.
Right. Because even if we get rid of it, there's still the void of it. There's like, like negative numbers, like, there's still.
Yeah,
this is like, the dirty stories about it. So you can't truly know.
Yeah, this is like going into like the whole infinity eternity debate. So
nothing. Well, you can only get by destroying something, and something has to come out of something, which is nothing. And you know what I know that I know that you know.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get back into a little bit more of just like the movie. Because the next one, it has more of the Fanta. Like, this is what like a lot of the advertisements were for the movie, for the soda. Summon the flavor you want. Don't you want? But like, it's all about summoning. I just thought that was
that makes sense. I mean, it is Beetlejuice.
Yeah, I mean, so it's clever. It's good marketing.
Yeah.
And here the Fanta flavor is orange, but the one that was haunted apple and it tastes like death, like are we drinking like the souls of these people? Like, and apples themselves too, haunted apple. We'll get into apples here as well. If you go to the next, we'll show you where, we got our other player in the game. Can't leave Saturn. He's associated with Saturn, but also he's associated with like Father Time, Saturn. And also like any of the Santa when you see like the man in the woods. So it's also like the turning of the Oak King and the Holly King, Celtic, but it's the seasons changing the rulership of like even the zodiac energy. And they're big planets, so they have a big punch. So Santa always associated with the Coca-Cola, right? He's from the North Pole. And it's also Coke. It's just special. We watch South Park. Coke, Coca-Cola, Santa, Christmas snow. There's also like this kind of association, which is interesting. At one point, they were using Coca-Cola to transport cocaine to everybody, and God bless them, everyone. That they're again using soda to like kind of use this just advertising, and it's associated with like these characters, and then also the Nazis love to take all that and run with it.
So you want to hear some crazy information? Like, Coca-Cola still has cocaine in it, but there's like one place in the world that is in the US that legally processes cocaine, and it's like I think it's a pharmaceutical manufacturer, and they process cocaine. They process cocaine into pharmaceutical products for local anesthetic. They still use it in limited use in medicine. So it's not like a completely illegal substance. So they use the psychoactive compound for the pharmaceutical stuff, and what's left over is the flavoring for Coca-Colas, basically the cocaine without the psychoactive compound in it. So Coca-Cola still has the cocaine flavoring in it. It just doesn't have the psychoactive part of it. It truly sucks, but that's a special ingredient.
I think interesting. So I wonder if it's the the Coke bottled in Mexico, because I love to get the glass bottles of Mexican Coke with real cane
No, I think it's
sugar.
a facility in New Jersey.
That makes sense. But yeah, it's probably the US one. And
Yeah,
I mean, people get addicted to sugar in itself. Like my go-to is like a good Coca-Cola if I might not, if I want one. Interesting. I'll have to look more into that. And I wouldn't in any way be surprised by that at all. At all. And so it gets even a little deeper with the sodas. Once you go down the rabbit hole, it's a fun little place. So if you go to the next, I'll show you another soda that I think is associated with some interesting messages as well. Mountain Dew. Mountain Dew. Mountain Dew always has really interesting graphics, and it's been around for a long time. And then when I just kind of like looked it up, there was all this association with somebody snowboarding. Looks like Dew. That's one. Here we would have Moses maybe up on the Mountain Dew. This associate kind of like with these mountains, right? And there were a lot of Jewish tribes and culture in the mountainous areas in Asia and Northern Europe and Russia, like all over the place, right? And so like I started looking into the correlation with that. Have you ever, I didn't even think of that. Like, and again, it's just really interesting. It's like kind of right there. And then you start looking into maybe why.
It's actually pretty funny.
It is.
It's the chosen. It's the drink of the chosen.
Right. Yeah. As far as like just like these like little memes and stuff that I instantly found. But there's something to why these have been created over and over.
Oh, I got a bunch of stuff running through my head right now. It's freaking hilarious. Just like taglines and stuff like that.
And so then I was like, okay, let's look into Mountain Dews a little further. And then I found like some, like I said, some, if you want to show the next images, the Mizrahi Jewish subgroup.
Mizrahi. Yeah.
Mizrahi, thank you. No, like I think I'm pronouncing it like my mom would have. So here are some very well-known and different Mountain Jews subgroups of Eastern Northern Caucasus. Oh man, I can't even say all these words.
I actually
in Persia.
Yeah, I know a little bit about this. Like I know the general overview of it, and just like the more tribal sects of different populations and stuff. I think it's fascinating. Like the more gypsy like religious groups and stuff. I think it's very fascinating. Like Morocco, like the mountain people of Morocco, the Muslim.
Yeah, I mean, and I've looked into
they are so fascinating, and it's yeah. So yeah, I know a little bit about this stuff. So it's Mizrahi subgroup, Mizrahi Jewish subgroup of the Eastern and Northern Caucasus, mainly Azerbaijan, and various republics in the Russian Federation, Chechnya. This one is there might be the Ingushetia, Dagestan, fuck if I know, and
Dagestan.
Yeah, I'm not going to pronounce that one. Bulgaria. You can try the rest.
Right.
I know a little bit. Some of it is like
I tried and I started copying. So up in like Bulgaria and Persia, Dagestan, and what's really what's interesting too is like, oh, whoa. I won't like I've definitely dove deep into past lives and memories and stuff, and kind of noticing why I was ending up in these different places. And this too, like it's probably where some of like my ancestors came from, up in these like the Poland, like the Poland mountain people, right? When you're getting more up in there, a lot of them are more of like these dark hair, like shepherds and gypsies maybe, but they're like, they live in the mountains, they come down, and they're usually they're a lot different than like these other countries that they would be coming down from. They're going into like Mongolia or coming down more into the Persian Gulf or the Mediterranean. And so then you can start to see that their migration. And then also, I think they were also, attacked a lot during the Holocaust, a lot. And I probably lost my notes. There's one specific slaughter, genocide of these people during that time that goes under radar. For whatever reason, my note isn't there. Yeah.
A lot of people don't understand what the during the stuff that happened during World War II to the Jewish population.
Yeah, we only have part of the
story.
Like
the more Orthodox, older Eastern. Hold on. So World War II, you saw like the assimilated Zionist Jews team up with the Nazis. I mean, there were Jews aligned with the Nazis, and they were basically wiping out the ultra Orthodox and like the Hasidics and like the older sects of the Jewish population, and that would include the ones that were in the more mountainous regions and like the shtetls and stuff. So.
Well, after they round up so many in like the cities, and this was not just in Germany, this was in many of these countries. And after the war, the Nazis did not stop the Nazis. And I mean, a lot of people will say that the Nazis didn't necessarily lose the war. Germany did. Oh yeah, yes. A lot of the rest of Europe even lost. So even after the war ended, they kept going after the mountain Jews, so they removed all the children from the Mizrahi transit camps, right? So they took all the kids, and this again can go into that transporting of all the children to North America too, or wherever, to this human trafficking where they usually like kill the parents and they take the kids. So wow.
They did that with the Native Americans.
So exactly. So it's like a genocide. So over 185,000 Mizrahi Jews were expelled from the Arab countries where they were born. I mean, so that's why the wandering Jew, you see like these different things named that have a couple plants that are wandering Jews. They're awesome. But you see like why things are called that, and it's just interesting to point out. It's interesting, and there's more to the story. A lot of us have a lot of wounds in our ancestry in the world because they, whoever's in charge, like there's like, let's attack these people, and they see opportunity to take over a culture and destroy it, make their own, and mix with the genetics and the DNA and keep people, the human flow, right? Keep them if you grow roots somewhere for too long, it's got to go. It's got to go.
Yeah. And, being of a Persian sect, I mean, that would be, a Persian group, that would be like one of the older sects of Judaism.
Yeah. This is like from Turkey, Libya, these any of these countries, like they were exiled from not only during like Hitler's reign, but like look at the Crusades, keep running people up to the mountains, right? Keeping people transporting and on the run, and even Jews from Greece, especially like even if they found him in these other countries, they would round him up, and put him in camps. And there was more going on than I think people even realize. There's like people that only think or don't even believe that the Holocaust necessarily happened. And I think that like is kind of like being a little bit too much in denial. I definitely think that the information isn't always correct what we get. It always is probably way worse than we
well
to believe.
It was more than just that with you know, the older sects of Judaism. It was also the Brahmani, the gypsies, you know, the old, it was basically like the older more mystical stuff. And you saw
Celtic,
you know,
Jews, right?
Depending on your opinion of Eastern Orthodoxy is, and you know, the Catholic Church and stuff like that, you saw a lot of that get wiped out too, especially with Eastern Orthodox Church. I mean, I've known people
because they're east, like this is all like the everyone from like the north and the east that they were trying to get rid of, and all the mountain Jews.
Yeah, I knew somebody that his grandparents immigrated to the U.S. During World War II. They were from Poland, and they immigrated here because they were persecuted for being Eastern Orthodox. So it wasn't just
where my
Jews, it was like the older sects of
yes.
They were basically trying to like secularize everything.
What so I think that's like where my grandma possibly came from. Again, like not everybody knows the direct storyline. She was Polish. She had the exact same hair as me. And her last name was like starts with a K, and it looks like one of these words, right? So I believe like her family were probably some of these like mountain gypsy Orthodox Jews. I really do, because I started seeing the correlation in some of like the taps in of the past lives. It's really interesting. So there's more to the story, and I think it's crazy that all the story is like written in soda, right? Can you go to the next slide? Gets even further because we have Mount Hermon, right? Mount Hermon is the story of the fallen angels, right? Mixing the DNA by Mount Her. I thought that was kind of funny. Mount Herman.
Yeah, it is.
Mount Herman. Like that's all like Mount Herman. Supposedly this is where the fallen angels had sexy time with the women, making a new species called the Nephilim. Of course, there's many different stories. Some people think if they are coming from Orion, that they were more of like sort of like this Orion alien race coming down, and they were more like the Transformers. They were metallic, they were machines. And the women are like, well, I don't want to have sex with a robot. Yeah, what era are we in right now? We're just entering Age of Aquarius, where people are starting to have sex with robots. Just saying, there's some similarity here. And they weren't like these sexy like male models with wings so much as like probably some robotic things trying to either have sex with like the humans here, or like they're mixing the DNA. But something happened on Mount Hermon. Another name is Mount Moriah. As you go further into time, but there's a lot to do with this. This is a biblical story. Actually, let me And so if
So
you
there's a Mount Moriah.
Yeah, that's right. It's more of like where the Temple Mound is, but that's another story. If you go to the next slide, I'm gonna have to. Then we get more into like the Beetlejuice, and it was not hard to find some like memes and cartoons about that. So we have Beetlejuice, right? Beetlejuice, and the Jew beetle, the jewel beetle. This is actually a real bug.
They're pretty too.
Yeah, they're metallic as well. Interesting.
Yeah.
And I just saying that like this, the DNA was mixed at Mount Hermon, but I said, like a lot of people think, or there's a theory that it's this Orion species that's more of like a robot or a machine, metallic. The one thing with the jewel, and that's spelled Jewel now, all this wordplay, the jewel beetle, it's a parasite to a lot of tree species, especially pine trees. So if you go to the next slide, it is a parasite to like fir, pine, ash, beech, apple, spruce, hemlock, and hazelnut. A lot of these Christmas tree species. They will burrow into the wood and kind of take over the living tree. Excuse me 1 second. So again, we have this time of year with the Christmas tree, right? I'll be right back. I have to blow my nose. And so it's interesting too that a parasite, considered something a parasite that is to Christmas trees and the whole Christmas celebration, the Jewish population celebrates separately than the Christian population, right? And it's kind of like this funny that one is an actual parasite to the Christmas trees. And what the Christmas trees are representing is eternal life, everlasting life, because they're evergreens. So something to that for sure, where something being a parasite to eternal life. It's a whole other like deep thought to even like concept. So we're gonna like continue like talking about like this whole concept of like the Beetlejuice and Mountain Dew and just be like the symbolism throughout the holiday season, because like Christmas isn't over really. Like New Year's Day, like I said, is the 8th day of the 12 days of Christmas, which is interesting. There's 12 zodiac signs, 12 months, and 8 is associated with the Jewish Hanukkah and just the religion in general, right? They celebrate for 8 evenings, and the Romans used to have 8 days in their calendar. So there's all this number 8. And then 8 also is another big number associated with like the whole J. I can't even talk. If you could go to the next slide.
Well, bringing me back to the beetle and the everlasting life thing.
Oh yeah, please do.
Beetle. You got the dung beetle or the scarab beetle that rolls the sun into life every morning.
That's right. Exactly. Here's like
so you can take it like both ways. Like they're both, they have both. They can either be a parasite or they can be bringing the sun to life every day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it ties in with the evergreen being like, like a evergreen plant. It's always green.
Like the jewel beetle, and isn't that interesting? Very nice. And then we also have like the pine cones, right? From pine trees, pineal like gland. There's all these associations.
Yeah, and the pineal gland and the pine cone of life, and there's a bunch of different really interesting correlations.
Anything being considered a parasite sometimes can be like that worm, right? The earworm, the worm eating the apple, huh? And like, so there's something like there's all this occult knowledge and correlation we're bringing to like it gets like even further, especially when you're like looking at every single part. It's outstanding.
Well, everything it has its like equal and opposite. So,
well, just like with religion, I learned that as a young kid because I'm like, all right, we had to go to Lutheran Christian church all the time, and I knew there was like holes in like the religion a little bit, why they thought they were so superior. So I definitely started
Andrew Baptist.
And I started looking into it. So like with yoga too, there are two wings of any bird, right? So very extremist on both ends. And with any branch with yoga, there'd be the left hand path, the right hand path. And some of the extremes were like cannibalists. And that's considered yoga because it's the complete opposite, right? And so
look at the more extreme sects of Christianity. I mean, they get into pretty freaking evil territory too. Like, look at Warren Jeffs and the fundamental Mormons and shit. Like, yeah, like,
and then even the Black Pope, Vatican,
have their evil.
Yeah, so there's like taking faith in the divine, right? And they're like making it kind of political with extremes of it. So people are want to practicing their faith, but they are involved with these, just like politics, the two super swings of the pendulum, the left and the right, the red and the blue spectrum, where they're keeping it to the extremes. And so
it's the desires from the material world that corrupt spiritual paths. And well, religion was also the first form of government too, but it's bastardizing these philosophies. It's basically humans running things through desire.
Yeah. creating bringing it into material world, but instead like creating a capitalist material money making scheme. Two sides, right? Two sides of the coin to the same fucking story.
Well, that goes into the 7 deadly sins, and like when you really go into it, it's like the lust, just this total unbridled lust for everything in life, not just sexual.
But there's
lust,
an opposite
lust
to it.
of anything, and that goes into gluttony, a lust for food, and just like intake, a lust for money and power that would be greed and pride. It's this, that's all lust, and all of that stuff corrupts being a spiritual being, and that's what the 7 deadly sins and all of these rules for all of the major religions and all the spiritual paths. Like that's what the rules are for, is because material, 3-dimensional wants and lusts, it corrupts everything in your life, and it corrupts the spirituality within your life too.
Wow. Good job, Shelly. Like, way to like kind of bring that into the corruptness of this time of year when the whole world is kind of like celebrating, but you should be celebrating and working on your inner health, your inner world, right? And your chakra system. And again, that we have like the 7 to work with. And so when you said the 7 deadly sins, that's the very opposite of this, the opening up the 7 seals of the chakra system. And that's by cleaning out the guts. And eventually on New Year's, you're lighting those candles of the Yule log and trying to meditate, right? And then you're meditating. And so it's kind of like if you engulf in the 7 deadly sins instead of looking at like resonate with the 7 frequencies that we're supposed to be living in is like it destroys it. And I was just like kind of,
well, that actually makes sense as far as like, the 7 chakras, all the different the chakras are associated with different systems of the body and different, aspects of your life. And, when you delve too much into like a negative thing or you overindulge in something, it has an effect on that specific chakra. So, you know, clearing that sin, that sin out of you, and through that chakra, that actually makes a lot of sense.
right. Well, and it's crazy too, where I'm always like bringing it from my perspective with like chakras and the solar system a little bit and the zodiac, is because that's kind of like that's how I instantly see the patterns. I see the 12, I see the 8, or I see like the chakras. I see the chakras. And so for the last couple of weeks, we've been digging into all the holiday season and all the symbolism. And I was like, oh my gosh, especially like with herbs, you're supposed to eat certain foods and use certain herbs this time of year, because especially during like the fall in Scorpio, Sagittarius, you're prepping your body, cleaning out the lower guts. You're working on the lower, like the red and the orange, right? That's the lower chakras to clean out the digestive system. And then you're supposed to really fast during part of like the 12 days of Christmas, right? And then and that's when you're sitting around the Yule log with 3 candles. You're supposed to sit around in silence and darkness. So you're meditating. They don't really tell you that, but that's what holy night, like. And so you're bringing yourself up into the higher chakras, the third eye, especially if you're sitting in a circle, you're all kind of focusing on that flame. And then when you break the fast, that's when they have that unleavened bread, no yeast, because you're past the firmament. The firmament is in your body when you're leaving like the water and like more like the molecular elements in your chakra system. And so I really think like that's why also gluttony, like drink a lot of wine, eat a lot of sugar, eat a lot of like this food, right? Even in this like this mountain town that people are all like so PC, that's when they have their winter burlesque. Okay, so they're celebrating Saturnalia by taking their tatas out in front of a Christmas tree. I mean, that's just Saturnalia itself, but like without people knowing, we're kind of people are focused on more of those 7 deadly sins instead of cleaning out your body inside and maybe not wanting, I want this for Christmas, but giving and like just the so there's this like opposite energy that is constantly trying to get us to celebrate this time of year differently, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the beginning of the year leading up to Valentine's Day, it's all about like recovering from all that gluttony and starting new things and clearing the bad out and refreshing your life. And
yeah, starting anew, like from the depths and the dark and even like the light returning, but also like all the plants are kind of dormant and stuff. It's a good time to clean out those lower guts. And you got to fight off like Halloween candy. And that's when all of it starts. It's Samhain, like you don't stop celebrating the entire half of the year like that, right? Like mostly it's just constant. And it's a lot.
And Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving, when you think about it, is really just a harvest festival type.
And so it is
so it's just a continuation of old traditions.
So there's this harvest. You want to eat really good, nurturing, like root vegetables and like kind of things with starch and stuff, because your body is getting ready to survive the winter, right? But also then there's like all this like sugar bombarded at you. But it is a time of harvest, but you don't want to overindulge. It's kind of like the message, because you just want to be able, if your body isn't aligned and clean. It's hard to find a higher consciousness level plane, and also spirituality, because you can't get into the higher levels of chakra consciousness.
Also, it makes sense that people
Close
get
it
more
down.
people get more sick in the winter during the holiday season, not just because people are enclosed and
Lack
all
of
that.
sun.
And not just because of a lowered immune system, but people are eating crap food that's full of sugar.
Right. And so like the fresh food isn't necessarily available.
So that any illness that brewing in your system. It makes so much sense that so many people get sick around the holidays.
That's why but the earth provides, and as an herbalist, right? Like last couple of weeks we were talking about elderberries, cranberries, like pumpkin squash, and then even like winter, like anything made out of pine. You have apple pies, and like these are the things that last longer for a reason, so that you can still get some of those nutrients in the winter. And that's why at the end of it, you fast, you meditate, and then you break the fast with unleavened bread. We talked about a couple weeks ago with the Three Kings Day on January 6th. They make a little bread around, like, especially all the Christian, like, especially Latin Christian, like, in Spain, in Mexico, Barcelona, especially, big celebration. They make a cake with no yeast, and then and they hide a little baby Jesus in it, and they decorate it, and that's what they break this fast with. They
fast. Oh, it's King's Cakes?
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, because they do that during they do that for Mardi Gras. They do that
around Mardi Gras. So All Kings Day, January 6th, is the very beginning of Mardi Gras. It lasts up until Easter. It's all tied in.
This stuff is so cool. Okay, so next slide.
Cool. Speak it up. Yes, please. A couple. So the parasites, since this jewel beetle, I started noticing that there was a lot of propaganda, especially during World War II, kind of like portrayed them as this worm. And so what this worm is, that's the larva of the jewel beetle. That's what burrows into all these pine trees and apple trees. And so the middle picture, that's kind of what they look like. It's a larva, so it looks like a worm. And the middle one, that was actually like in a newspaper, where they have like the Star of David, right? And that's what the Jews had to wear on their arm, a yellow star. And they're referred to as a parasite that needed to be wiped out. And so it's really weird, all these correlations then with the jewel beetle, Beetlejuice, right? It's
see that a little bit. You should be able to see that a little bit.
Yeah, and so it's like the parasite of the world here. And then they would have their star. And this was like what the public, especially in Germany, was kind of given. And it started being associated with eventually too, like the sodas and stuff, but they first introduced the product, and then anything on the advertisement, then they started bashing the Jews, because then it was okay that they're the underdog, right? And you see that all the time with advertising and jokes, where it could quickly flip depending on who is to blame, like a pecking order. You saw that during COVID even, right? Where everybody's equal, and then all of a sudden, oh, like, you're a parasite if you aren't medicated like we are. We don't do this right. We don't vote this way.
They did that in the state of New York. They did it, I think it was like in 2018 when there was a measles outbreak in Rockland County. They claimed it was, they said the measles outbreak was from I think Hasidic Jewish communities that visited, that were unvaccinated, that went to Israel, caught measles there, and brought it back to New York State. And then like the next year they passed a law banning, they reversed the allowance for the philosophical and religious allowance exemptions for vaccines. So they banned that. So there is only medical exemptions for vaccines in the state of New York now. After that, they also basically treated the Hasidic and ultra Orthodox community like parasites. Like they were dirty in New York City in the beginning of COVID, because the ultra Orthodox and Hasidic communities were very much against the lockdowns. They were very much against a lot of the COVID protocols and against forced vaccination and stuff like that, because they understand the shit. They understand exactly. That and forced vaccination,
they smell
all this forced stuff.
A long way.
It's a slippery slope into fascism, like full on, like full eugenics.
Yeah.
They understand that very well because
it's very easy. People don't think, and like I could smell another genocide, Holocaust coming on real fast. It doesn't take much.
Yeah.
At all. Like humanity.
But
it's fear driven, and all of a sudden, like they get used to it's okay. Well, as long as it's not me. Oh, we like that's who we suppress now. It's so easy. It can happen to anybody, and you know.
Yeah, but like I said, it's like it's battling sects of the same religion, because it's the Zionists, the assimilated types, and against like the more orthodox sects of Judaism and the older sects of Judaism,
and they do it right.
More traditional ones. So it's like a battle of like new versus old, and then I mean there's Zionist Christianity and Zionist.
We want to remarket this. We want to redesign
like,
your.
Yeah, it's really the political ideology of it, like. But
because there like the roots of all of like there's explanation of our soul's journey in these texts and in these religions, but then in this knowledge, that's why it was occult knowledge a long time, like, you know what I mean? But it got exploited, of course, everything does, and used to really let the masses be led down the wrong, like the opposite side of what it is, right? Doing it the opposite way without anybody knowing it right in front of you. And they even had the Olympics in Germany, right? Kind of when, you know, they started kind of having this fascist type of energy with Hitler and his right, and it slowly started happening, right? It slowly started becoming where when Germany had the Olympics, they cleaned up their act. And so when the world came to watch the World Games, those rings are very symbolic. Everyone's like, no, we went to Germany. There was nothing like that going on because we don't have the internet then, right? So it's like all hearsay. All this information slowly gets around the world. And then it's rumors. It's like, well, I heard this. And pretty soon, if there's something going on and people are just kind of disappearing or you're not sure why, and then pretty soon it's like, oh, like, it's like, well, even during COVID, you would see people tattling on each other because, like, well, they were outside walking their dog. You know, people with fear, especially the ones that are like super fearful sheep, they'll believe any of this shit. That's where they're banging on.
Well, you've got.
They will kill you.
you've got the propaganda like on both sides of the extremes.
Oh, just let it happen.
The extremes of both sides, because like it's like with let's just say World War II, there's a lot of questionable stuff about, you know, the 6 million Jews and like the actual number of the actual deaths and like what actually happened, because a lot of typhus took out a lot of people. And there were some other like malnutrition and stuff like that, like towards the end of the war. Plus there was also you know, there were gays, there were political opponents, communists, which, you know, a lot of Jewish people were communists, so, you know, a lot of people don't factor that in as far as the amount of Jews that were in concentration camps. And then there was legitimate, you know, going after the Jews, but there was also going after they're rounding up the gypsies,
all the misfits, all the misfits.
So it was I honestly think the reality of the numbers and the amount of Jews in the concentration camps, Occam's razor would be in the middle, and that would be because a lot of Jews or a lot of communists were Jews. I'll just put it that way. I wouldn't say a lot of Jews are communists. I would say a lot of communists were Jewish. You know, just knowing.
Yeah, and it
was the
like
Jewish people in my life, they'd like to do a lot of community service. They're all about communities and stuff like that. So it makes a lot of sense to me, you know, personally.
Yeah,
you know,
there was like this.
A lot of the communists might be Jewish.
Also, the fear factor of like we have to save ourselves from communism. Also, save ourselves from something that might happen in the Cold War, right? We have to save ourselves, and not quite yet. Like what ended, you know, that. When they dropped the A-bomb, Hiroshima.
Yeah.
That's when like then they had the fear factor of the Cold War. They didn't even have to have weapons and all this stuff. So it became more of like a psychological warfare. And that is brilliantly done all the time. Where you still hear like people, oh, the unvaxxed, like they're like we're the parasite, or you know.
But you have the other extreme saying like, "Oh my God, the vax are just you stay away from them because you're gonna catch something from them." It's the same.
Like we're a parasite. We're dirty. They have been cleansed.
Yeah, we're both
right?
viewing.
So they're the ones that took
each other like
you
that.
Dirty needle. I was taught you put some needle in your arm. Now you're dirty. You're doing dirty things. But
like, why should I care about somebody else's own personal medical decision? Like,
so during, you know, like the country that got attacked with like forced vaccinations the most, Israel. Remember? The entire country. Yeah. They made sure all those attacked Jews lay down. They would vaccinate them in the street.
It's funny that you
were particularly attacked.
I started watching a documentary about that last night.
Yeah,
from 2021, celebrating the fact that it was all.
It was the most
vaccination of an experimental drug.
Not even mandatory. It was like they were like really? It was forced. It was forced. It was not. It was forced.
People don't understand how freaking insane that is.
So they are attacking that particular not only religion but also like the bloodline and stuff too, right? And that country, Israel, is Palestine. Like I feel bad for saying that because it has been taken over and it is part of like this global middle world that they can like play with, but they made sure they got that thing into as many Jews in that country as possible. It was like Terminator.
You know, that's actually, now that you mention it, you know, trying to get that to be at the center of, you know,
we're talking about Beetlejuice
for Judaism, and it's like, you know,
and we love everybody, and I love all the Jews. I probably am. We are pointing out like what is happening. Let's not let this happen again to anything. But this is what
look
at history.
This fish in a barrel that is
fucked with all of us.
Barrel. It makes you wonder what the hell is about to happen.
Right. So Yeah, we're just because like with everything, like there are Christian like leaders that are abusing and human trafficking. They're using it for evil.
But the thing is, they're actually Zionist Christians that are
exactly, and so there's Zionist Jews, there's Zionist everything.
It's the Zionism.
Everything.
It's the Zionism.
So just remember that
it's not the religion, it's the Zionism.
The people at all. So like that's when people are like, oh, well, obviously there's a reason, because some of those people using the cross or the X, whatever your symbol is, they're exploiting it in the same way, and it gives a bad rap to those people. So that's why there's always
dude.
There it is.
Zionists ruin it for everybody.
So speaking of, so the cross and X, I talk about these a lot, and the cross that we are exposed to is a different cross because it's not the axis, right? It's elongated. It has a little extra square at the bottom of it, right? So if it's a little longer, and if you would wrap it up, it would be a cube Saturn. There's a little correlation there. So I think that the axis is the real cross, where it's the same length, and then just like our Earth that tilts, it becomes the X. And when our Earth tilts all the way far, like the winter solstice, it's more of an X. And then at the equinox, it's the cross. And then at the solstice, X. See? And so that's why like these symbols and these planets are associated kind of with like the X or the cross. And I think it has to do with like where we can go when we die in the afterlife, if we sinned or not. So we could get more into that. If you go to the next slide, then we could really get into something I would like to end with. And that is Planet X. Planet X. Because Nibiru, Planet X, they are all kind of associated. And Nibiru is this mysterious planet that my brother, his birthday was December 29th, a couple days ago, and he died 9 years ago. And he was always after, this is why I even do podcasts. This is out of Luke's love. Well, honor to Luke. Happy birthday, Luke Meiers.
I get it.
But he was always after finding out the truth about Planet X. They call it different things, the 12th planet, the 10th planet, 9th planet. Throughout time, there's always been all these sci-fi stories about it. Zachariah Zilchin, in the 70s, he did a whole series, great books about the 12th planet. He's talking about this. So everybody's been in search of it. And through a lot of my research, it's the place in between. It helps your soul get to the next. It helps your soul get to the afterlife. And so you can't necessarily see it. Which is quite profound. And so then I started thinking about like Beetlejuice, the movie with the IO, like this moon where they're trying to get in between the underworld and back to the living. And here they are again on this IO. Normally I would think, oh, maybe that is Planet X, but what is IO? 10. What if it's a 10th planet? What's 10 anyway in Roman numeral? What's 10? It's an X. It's an X. It's an X. What if we just found it there anyway? It's volcanic action. What if they go through these volcanoes, get here? What if there's portals? And that is a stopping ground in the in-between life. I mean, I'm just saying. And here we have Saturn again. But usually Planet X2 can be associated with this Nibiru. And so I think that's where Nibiru necessarily might be the same thing or not. But Planet X is at 10. And it's a cross, right? So a cross is a crossing between the afterlife and life. It's the crossing point. It's the crossroads.
Well, I mean, there is a 10th planet that's past Pluto. It just goes in such a large elliptical
right, but there's like a
pattern.
And that's another one that could be part of it too.
It's not part of our solar system, but it's part of our. But it is it's in our orbit. It's just outside of our solar system.
And that is like more of the traditional one, like Zachariah Zilchin, where it does come into one theory is that it comes into our solar
Yeah,
system
it's supposed
sometimes because
yeah,
we merge. There's so much stuff going on beyond our solar system. It's not like we all move in like we're on a cakewalk and like we don't interact.
yeah, so because it's like
Yeah.
such a a large large elliptical, like ancient
Orbit.
elliptical, it's just yeah, it's not like round, it's very, very up and
And that's
down.
another great one too, because here the
It's
idea is
about
it
it's
needs
supposed to
this
be coming back, I think.
it's a passageway, so it could be sort of like a not a train, but like a passage bringing us when it does come around. It drops some people off, it picks some people up, and then it goes and it keeps going in its orbit, and sometimes we come together. That's another another great story that has to do with that one too. And then there's also that you can't see it because it is it's invisible because it is a
I
passage.
think it's about to enter. I think you know, according to the theories,
There's so many theories.
time that
Some
it's
people think it's here
entering
right
our
now.
orbit again.
Yeah,
It's supposed to
or
like enter the closest to our orbit, like
and with
soon.
Zechariah Zilton, that would be about like 10,000 years. And so with that theory, we have like it hitting something in our solar system, maybe the other planet in between Saturn and Jupiter, right? So again, it's correlated with maybe you can see that's why you would see Saturn and Jupiter from a planet there if it was in between. That asteroid belt is there, and there are remnants from it looks like a planet used to be there. And so there's all this like, okay, planet X has something, or this X has something to do with our solar system in the past. But at the same time, it has to do with their soul's journey. I mean, the solar system itself is part of the soul's journey because that's the Jacob's ladder up through your chakra system. You need to learn to live in a higher consciousness and not be a reptilian that just eats, his own kind and lives at a lower frequency of eat, fuck, and sleep like a reptilian. And so, in a lot of books by Barbara Handclough, especially when they're talking about elevating to higher levels of consciousness, that's you can also look at the planets moving to the outer planets, further out into outer space until because we have the 7 planets. Once you leave there, you're in way outer space, and that's not connected to your chakra system, the portals to those planets, which is really cool. And so if you don't mind moving to the next, there's something, okay, so then there's planet X, and Nibiru has been called many different things, and it doesn't even have to be the same as planet X. But I think planet X, at least the crossroads to somewhere. So this is an old symbol of so this is in Barbara Handclough's book. So the galactic bridge, as you're moving from like the pyramid, right? It's from physical, emotional, mental, soul. That's even in your body. That's the chakras. Then we have the Chiron bridge, which is an asteroid, meaning the wounded warrior. And then right above that, before you get into all these constellations, you have Nibiru. And it's shown as this axis 8-pointed star. And then it's the Pleiades, Sirius, Vega, Chariot, all the way up to Andromeda, way up into the galaxy. And the more you move through these, you move up through the dimensions to Barbara Handclough's books with the Palladian agenda and also what's the other one? Like sex So again, this was on a coin even, like this is the 8-pointed star in Nibiru. So with the Jewish, like their religion, 8-pointed star, right? They have an 8-pointed star. And then what it also is 8, the 8 days a week of the old calendar. We've talked a lot about that on Poppy Spill Project. And then even what if this has something to do with that Star of Bethlehem? A star that, like shone above the 3 wise men, leading them to the Christ consciousness, or the baby Jesus, right? welcoming a new world. So there's all this kind of correlation, and Nibiru has something to do with our soul's journey into higher consciousness and our whole planet, where we've come from, where we're going. It is a gateway to beyond our soul, like beyond our body.
Well, the 8 is also the symbol for infinity. It's the same thing.
Right. It's the year of the dragon. It's infinity.
Yeah.
It's a circle that's twisted.
It's eternity.
So to me, whenever I've been looking at this, so we're in the Milky Way. I swear to God, we go from like Earth, we ascend all the way up back into Andromeda, and then we go wherever that galaxy takes the same type of funnel, and then we ascend back up, and we come back down, back and back and back and back for it.
Yeah, and if you look at, you know, that first page, it's the X and stuff, and that's also an 8 too. So you're constantly cycling up and down through the scale.
Yeah. And what is it? What's at the very point is that Chiron, the chirotic bridge. And if you've been listening to Public School Project, or you know about astrology with the asteroids, Chiron is the wounded warrior. It's coming like, so it's a centaur. It's half horse, half man. He's like a demigod. He's half God, and he's part of this the animal world, right? And so he has to learn to be part both here on Earth. And the wounded warrior is Chiron in astrology. When you look at at all the bodies up there, you can count Chiron, and it's that wounded warrior, your soul's journey, like going through the depths and like healing yourself. I'm a healer. I've had quite a journey. I've had to learn how to heal myself. And so that is like you are elevating through the consciousness, but then you also have to learn how to be hurt so that you can heal yourself and to heal others. And then you can ascend way beyond your own body and conscious into the higher consciousness. I don't know.
Yeah, I've had a lifetime of doing that with all my chronic illnesses.
Yeah, and some of us
doing it right now. So
yeah, and again, you have your Chiron returns. I know Nova just had that. If you turn 50, that is when your Chiron transit. That is your Chiron return. It's quite powerful. It's quite powerful. That's why people have midlife crisis, and you have to learn to. If you haven't opened up your heart chakra yet, you have some work to do. You will be stunted, and you're gonna have some difficulties then a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to agree on that one.
Yeah. So anyway, I think it all has really. This is about Beetlejuice, but I really think it has something to do with all of it, because we have these symbols of 8. We have Fanta, the Nazis, the Holocaust. We have the afterlife, the living, and this bridge, even at the winter solstice, these planets of Saturn, Jupiter, maybe being the old kings, right? Second coming of Saturn, man. I think like Saturn and Jupiter are trying to get as much army together again so that they can battle to be the next new star of our solar system, or it's going to change because our star is about to become Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice is about to explode. The year of the dragon is still happening. 1988 is when Beetlejuice 1 came out. 2024, Beetlejuice 2 came out. Another year of the dragon. And if you're going to the Chinese zodiac,
25 years later, in fact.
Yeah. Right? So, like, again, they're telling us something. So we're paying attention. This New Year's isn't the Chinese New Year's, however. So we do have a little bit more room coming into a little bit more time of Year of the Dragon. Year of the Snake is next, kids, okay? So we have been living in the dragon realm, and now like the snake can be the serpent. Not the same as a dragon, and we're going to see some interesting stuff. So keep all this stuff in mind, like Nibiru, Planet X. we got Twitter, it's X. There's a lot of symbols of either a cross, an X. Pay attention to it. And man, what a good podcast. Thanks, Shelly. Like, we have more to talk about, but it's gonna be a whole other chapter. But it's all tied in, and we just like to connect the dots. But we also love this entertainment because of that. If you're just watching this entertainment, you don't understand symbolism, I doubt you're getting the same experience. Really.
It turns out this is pretty appropriate for the first day of the new year, talking about recycling
right
and
here.
stuff like that, and renewal, and
so drink some Fanta, some
eternity.
Use all of it, like use 8. But on New Year's Day, this is the 8th day. Hello. It's the 8th day of the 12 days of Christmas. Because the solstice happened, and then Christmas is when the sun returns, when the sun actually starts to return, because the winter solstice is the darkest night, longest night, and the earth is tilted, but it doesn't start moving back for 3 days. And then it starts to return. So Christmas morning, that's when that movement starts happening again. So for 3 days, dude, that's probably a portal where you can just like shoot off into outer space, maybe that way. I run into everything during this time because nothing is balanced. And then on the equinox, that's when the earth is upright. It's like Christ, like our whole axis. And you can balance an egg. You can balance a broom, which is funny. Those are like fertility, like very symbolic anyway, but you can balance them because our earth is balanced. Very interesting, right? I can't wait to dive into more. This has been really fun. Happy New Year's, everybody, as far as like what the calendar of the Julian Gregorian calendar goes. But it makes sense as far as astrology goes with like the new moon and not, but it's just like it's all part of the same season. Everyone's celebrating the same thing without knowing it. Astrology, chakras, and the well-being of our planet. Yeah. Thanks, Shelly.
This is the season of death and renewal and rebirth. So
yeah, of your soul and the planet. So thanks everybody. Poppysville Project. We had Shelly today. Nova Matthew couldn't make it. We were just trying to make all your dreams come true by having a show on Hump Day, because we have a show every Wednesday, and the Anartist collective, we are collaborated, and so this just is perfect. We want to bring solutions to spirituality, to all this madness. We're looking at the things like astrology and all these stories because like there's clues so that we know how to navigate what's happening right now, right?
And the spiritual stuff, like there's so many great stories and mythologies and stuff like that
and we're just
inspiration
nerding
for
out
artwork,
on it.
and it's fun.
It helps us understand kind of what like is happening with like the world politics war, but I'm not even interested in all that. It's like blah, 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 like to look back to history, it's like so exciting. And then you kind of can look at what's going on now. That's what I learned in theater. We learned history, and history theater represents what's going on in society. And it's all about the kings and queens anyway. So thank you, everybody. And yeah, do you have anything else to say?
Happy New Year, everyone.
Yes. Happy New Year. It's not Y2K. That was kind of fun. Another good psyop. But again, look out for them. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Good night.